I just wanted to go through some points, have some questions around, not necessarily, this COVID thing. We're kind of battling in it, and I appreciate you don't have all the answers, and it affects different organizations in different ways. But I guess we're not unique in the fact that we have to go through it all together. And the one thing that I am very aware of, that you can't have the answers for everything because it's new. It's kind of fluid. It's happening as you go, and you kind of have to not make it up as you go along, but you almost need to strategize for each way that you go. So when I went out to try to research some of the questions stuff, I stumbled across this piece where they had interviewed 1,000 companies on how they're dealing with COVID, and I thought maybe we could discuss some of the points that came out. And the first one was this, which astounded me actually, was that 90% of the workforce said they won't go back into the office full time ever again. What is your view on that? Is that something we can not accept, but we can morph into, or do you think it'll just go back to how it was?
Well, that's good speech adding. I definitely don't think it will go back to what it was. Before I even get to that, to kind of talk about COVID without first just appreciating the human suffering that COVID has caused is quite challenging. If you just think about the loss of life and the illness and loss of loved ones, loss of businesses, loss of jobs, it's been a big story globally and obviously in our country. And that is an important kind of lens, I think, as business to always appreciate, because people are going through that. So this hasn't just been a huge experiment in remote working. This has been a huge experiment in dealing with a global pandemic. And therefore, I'm not quite sure how remote working or the future of work will operate in a post-COVID world. Because what we've been dealing with at the moment is very much in a COVID world, and that's got its own implications. I think there's huge value in remote working. For a lot of people, they are saving a lot of money, saving a lot of time, more productive. So I think there's lots and lots to be gained from increased remote working. But there is huge value in the human connection. And I think that, collective creativity, which is such an important part of business and such an important part of successful business, is something which I don't think can be achieved nearly as well in a remote environment as it can in an in-person environment. The few engagements that we have had in person, where we've sat around a table and brainstormed an issue, a challenge, an opportunity, the level of thinking and the quality of engagement was just worlds apart from how those would have been in a remote environment. So maybe you can be more productive remote working, but productivity is just one part of defining a successful company. Creativity is very important, collaboration is very important, how those come together is very important. So I think finding this hybrid approach and fine-tuning it, and it's something which I think we're still going to learn as time progresses, I think will be very important to meet the benefits that remote working provides, while not losing touch with the benefits of a human connection.
I like your point around the things that will be affected and the things that are good and bad. People have said basically that production's up. Whether how you measure that, I guess it's just a pure output thing. But what do you think the biggest thing that will be affected? Is that culture, or is that a sense of ownership? Where there's a good, there seems to be a bad. And these people that want to work remotely and we're now downsizing, whatever that may be as a corporate, what do you think the most negative effect will be? Is that just pure collaboration, or do you think, because I know culture is very dear to your heart, do you think it'll have a big impact on culture?
I think it will. There are benefits to culture in remote working as well. When a company appreciates that a individual is traveling 2 hours to and from work and is able to facilitate that person being able to work from home, and the associated cost saving and time saving, that enhances your culture, because you're showing care for your people, which is a critical part of culture. But then culture is also very much in how people engage with one another. It's where the behaviors meet. And I think that mindfulness, or that the body language, the non-verbal cues, which are so important in meetings and engagements, I've made a point of meeting with all my key people in person, because people won't always tell you everything that's on their mind. And maybe in an in-person meeting, you'll pick up some things that you wouldn't pick up. And those small things can make a very big difference to see where a person's at, where their concerns might be. They might be sitting on a great opportunity. And the other point just to make is that a lot of people complain about meetings, a meeting culture. And one of the things that they complain about in meetings is that meetings can move off point, and they can become people interrupting one another, and you can go down these routes which are a waste of time. And I suppose on a Teams meeting that's less likely.
Yeah.
But those off-point elements of a meeting can be some of the most important times in coming up with a new idea, shifting the way you think. So the very things which can be frustrating in a meeting can be so important to developing a business, developing a team, developing an idea, developing a concept. And I think that it's back to this hybrid model, and how it's achieved is going to be something which we'll have to grow with over time.
As we go down that route of achieving this, as you say, hybrid model, as you mentioned, COVID is bigger than just work. It brings with it a lot of stress. How do you think people are coping? You know, working from home is an extra stress. I think there's a lot that can be said around the complexities that it brings. How do you feel people are coping during this time?
So I've been having small forums of about 10 or 12 kind of management level people every week over the last few weeks. And the purpose of those forums has just been to listen to how people are coping.
Yeah.
And I've asked lots of questions, you know, what's been some of the good, some of the bad, personal level, work level. And there's been such a wide range of experiences over this time. I think there are some people where this time has really enhanced their personal relationships, their family lives. They've been able to be more present for their children at different points. They've been more effective in their work, and they're very, very positive about how they have experienced this time. But there are other people who have been very stressed. You know, they've experienced loss in their life. They've experienced maybe a spouse or a family member who's lost a job, lost a business. They're quite appreciative over the fact that they've retained their jobs, and so there's an appreciation. But I think for many people it's been very stressful. I think that the statistics show high levels of depression globally and mental health issues. So there's no doubt about it that this time has been a time of immense pressure for many people. But people, even the people who've gone through that, most of them, not all of them, some people want to go back to what it was before COVID. There's a small group of people who have had enough of COVID and they just want to go back to pre-COVID. But in general, and there's some people who are saying this is what they want, this to be the way the future is for themselves. But the vast majority of people, want to retain elements of what they've experienced over the last few months. They're very appreciative of having had this opportunity, but there are issues that they're experiencing which they've had enough.
And do you think we equip staff with the ability to deal with those issues, or is that still things we're developing? Are we looking at different ways of empowering, say, HR or other? I know you spend a fortune of time on development practices, you know, the Tuesday meetings that you hold with all the staff. Is there more that we could do there, or is this just almost a developing story?
I'm not sure. I'm sure there's always more we can do. I have asked our management to ensure that they meet all their people in person if they can. Not putting anyone under pressure.
Yeah.
Someone is uncomfortable meeting at this time, I understand that as well. But for those who are comfortable meeting in person, I've asked them all to go out of their way to meet with their teams and meet with individuals to really try and understand what's going on. I think there are a group of people who've had to work very hard during this period who are looking forward to the December holidays, and hopefully they'll be able to get a really good break, because over and above dealing with having to remote work and having to learn about COVID, you know, more on the banking side of the business and the wealth side of the business, you're dealing with small businesses and medium businesses, and that has brought a lot of pressure as those businesses have gone through their own pressures, and what that's impacted that's had on the credit team, the people facing those clients, the sales team, I think has been quite taxing, because we want to try and help those businesses, but it's difficult when you see these businesses and you're trying to manage the credit risk. So I think that's had quite a big impact on the banking side of the business. And so I'm sure there's more we can be doing. We have tried to do a lot, and but I think what's also very important with this, with everything, is that people empower themselves. At the end of the day, a business can only do so much.
Yeah.
And I think one of the great things about Sasfin is the quality of our people, and the people kind of tend, by and large, to take ownership over these issues. So we can try and help that, but that ownership is very important.
So one of the things, and you talked around it, is what are the added pressures? So I was going through lists of comments, and there were loads of comments that came out of the survey. One of the things which astounded me was we had just assumed it said async by default. And just to elaborate on that, what had happened was organizations just decided we must just replicate what we do at work at home. And it doesn't fit. And people are saying square peg, round hole, causing extra stress. Would you agree with that? How do we change that? You can't just set your office up at home. It's a different environment, different situation. You can't work the same.
Well, my personal experience has been that I have shifted the way I've worked personally. And I think that has been the case. I think it's been remarkable how people have reacted. We are electronically onboarding clients across the board, and we were doing that almost from the day that COVID hit. And we were able to meet clients and have webinars. And people, from across the spectrum, across the whole business, their adaptability was quite something. And I know that, I'm so appreciative of it, because I know in speaking to some of my peers in other businesses similar to ours, they weren't ready for it. They didn't have the electronic onboarding capability set up. They didn't have Microsoft Teams and Zoom set up. They didn't have all the kit necessary. So I think that there has been an adaptation in the way people have worked. I also think, one of the things that we always get complaints around is how the regions experience a head office. But I think during this time, the regions have been completely the same as head office. So that's a great benefit.
Yeah.
And how you can kind of work now cross-region, I think that's been another adaptation. I've been to one of the morning meetings, but and I haven't been to morning meetings for a long time, but the feedback I've received on the morning meetings is that it's a different experience to what it was in a pre-COVID world. So I think there has been that. I'm sure there's more opportunity to do that, but I've been quite taken aback by how much our people have adapted to this time.
You talk around adaptation, and that's important to me. I think it shows resilience, and the people I've met in my short time here have been very resilient. They just get on and get it done, which is, I think, a great quality, and it speaks to the culture. But we're chatting with Errol this morning around this client engagement and how important it is. And it's a different, how do you balance the credit risk versus, and the culture of helping your clients grow and stuff like that? You kind of sit on both sides. Is it do you debate this in your mind constantly? How are you dealing with that, particularly in these COVID situations?
So look, credit is, the awarding of credit is there's always a tension in that moment, and you need that tension. It's such an important element of building a successful credit business. You need someone who's fighting the case of the client, and you need someone who's going to be very skeptical in the room. And those voices are important voices, and you want those voices to be loud and to be heard. Because unfortunately, there are many borrowers out there who aren't creditworthy, or who will take you if you're not careful. So you have to have that healthy dose of skepticism. It's very important. But if the best way to have no credit losses is just to award no credit. And we're in the business of helping businesses. And there are many great businesses who we've provided support to in this time, through payment holidays and through relief and through increased funding, because their businesses needed it. And we were confident in the management teams and the business cases of those businesses that while they've gone through some challenging months, they will be able to sustain these issues and come through it stronger. They just need a little bit of a lifeline in the short term. But on the credit side, it's a very fine balance.
One of the other things we said with the dealing with the clients and the need for technology, all these things, do you foresee a big investment in technology coming up? I know that a lot of companies have these technology roadmaps, maybe 3, 4, 5 years. Some of the results coming out of the survey were that those 5-year plans are now going to reverse back to even 6 months' time. Do you foresee that happening, or do you think we'll wait a little bit to see how we land? Where do you think we'll go from a technology space in banking?
So we've invested a lot in technology over the last 5 years, and I think that we were quite fortunate in that because it made us more ready, as I was saying a bit earlier.
Yeah.
So many of the digital tools and many of the remote tools are in place in this business already, but there definitely is a lot more that we need to do. I think the data journey is the next frontier. So a lot of what we've been focusing on up until now has been in terms of digitizing the processes. And I think that the next stage of that is to add value to our clients through a better understanding of our data and their data, and using that in a way which can share value back to the clients, and to offer them better insights into their portfolios, better insights into their businesses, can help us make better credit decisions, can help us make better investment decisions. So I think that we are spending a lot of money on the data roadmap as it stands. We quite, I don't think we can go faster than what we're going, because these things take time to land. So I think our net spend in IT has been very high in the last few years. That will actually probably reduce slightly, because we've done big line of business systems changes in most parts of our businesses, which is a big investment, and now it's more about last mile and really building that data capability.
We have a great bunch of portfolio managers in the business that have been here a really long time, but where's the next generation of PMs coming from? And the seismic change, as you explained, is that going to change the way these new up-and-coming PMs are thinking about investments? Are they going to come from a different world? What does that look like for you? I know I'm asking you to look into a crystal ball here, but do you have any insights or thoughts on that?
Look, firstly, there's huge value to experience. So I'm very appreciative of our long-standing portfolio managers who've been with us a long time. They've been through cycles. They've seen these seismic shifts in the past. They don't get. They've adapted well. They've adapted their way they manage money well. It's worked well for clients. They kind of have years and years of experience being through these different cycles, and I think that they are in many ways kind of the foundation of this business. But what's really important with every business is to develop talent. And I think in each of our businesses, branches and business units, there are some really strong, young, talented individuals. And how those individuals develop and are able to challenge the old guard, which is important, and the old guard have to be willing to kind of take those challenges on. I think that's very important. But also then to learn, and to just listen and to soak in all that experience. So that's your job, Flynn, right? To kind of manage that balance, right?
Dynamic,
to manage that dynamic by really absorbing this experience in the business, while ensuring an environment in which young people can flourish and grow and develop while and challenge.
Great. Well, I'll wrap it up there. Thanks very much for your insight. I truly appreciate it. It's a trying and testing time. I'm sure you got your hands full, and taking the time to speak to me today.
No, it's a pleasure. Always good to chat.
Thanks.
Thank you.